Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea. Today's video I am sharing a whole stack of travel layouts. So this is specifically from my Hawaii 2015 album, and I have some of my favorite pages here that I want to show you. I mostly used the Kaisercraft Island Escape collection. There's a little bit of Close to My Heart mixed in here, but a lot of it is that Kaisercraft collection. And I also want to give you some tips and ideas for using large photos on your layouts. I love using enlargements specifically in my travel albums because usually I have really nice scenery shots that I want to include. So you'll see some of that as we go through. So let's jump in and I'll give you a close-up look at these pages. So first off, let's start with the title page. Since I did mix more than one collection here, I wanted to have something that went through the whole album, which for me was the craft paper. So I used craft paper for a lot of bases, as photo mats, and just used that as my through line to kind of connect the two collections so that they blended more seamlessly. I have some stamping on the background here, which is probably with desert sand or toffee ink, because that is a really nice match for craft paper. I have my title cut out on my Cricut. No idea what font that is. This was made a few years ago. And then I have photos here. These are, well, they are originally 3x12. I did trim them down a little bit to go onto my page. And then these pieces here are from the paper collection, and I just cut them down and matted them. This is also a Cricut cut right here. And then I stamped the dates down here. It's always handy to have that as a reference on your first page. I always like to have the dates on there. Now for these size of photos, what I did was I created a collage. I just brought up like a square collage, either in an app. I like using PicMonkey, whatever app you like to use to make photo collages, whether on your phone or your computer. I picked one that had 4 long slots, and then you remove the white area in between so that there's no gaps in between the photos. And then I just dropped my photos in. You can see all of these are actually panoramic shots. So I use the panorama option on my iPhone to take these pictures. That's why they look a little bit like fisheye and kind of bendy, but it's a great way to get these really wide prints. So I dropped 4 different photos into one of those collages, and then I printed it as a 12x12. So you can either send that out to be printed, or you can print at home if you have like a large format printer. And I just think this is such a great beginning to my album. Some really pretty scenery shots that I love from this trip. And this is also a fun way to include if you're with a really big group of people too. If you do these kind of shots, then you can kind of get everybody in one picture. So here is a 2-page layout. I used the craft paper again in the background. I did also ink my edges on all of my pages. That's another element that I brought through the entire album using that same brown ink. I'm guessing it was either toffee or desert sand. They're very close to each other, so kind of a medium brown color. And this one here, you can see it has that like postage stamp edge. That was a die cut piece from the collection. So I didn't have to create that. It was already like that. I just cut it so that it could go from one page to the other page. And then I have some like sun ray pattern paper in the background here. I did use sequins for my little embellishments, some stickers. I had some like wood looking veneer type stickers here. This is a stamped image that I did a little bit of light watercoloring on. Stickers from the collection, sticker strips, and then more clusters on this side. I pop dotted some of them and added some more sequins to my clusters. So I'm just repeating the same elements and changing the size of the clusters. So I still have seashells, but they're different seashells. They're all watercolored with the same shades. I think this was glacier and then the toffee color as well. And then same with the sequins. I'm just repeating those elements to make it all tie together. This one was from a cut apart sheet from the collection. And then I squeezed in a little bit of journaling. Sometimes, depending on where you're going, you may not have a ton of journaling, so you could always add in another photo. I do like to leave some room for at least a little bit of journaling though, so that I know like, why did I create this page? What was special about this that I documented it. Here's a page I've shown you guys before. This one I showed in a video. It's called 3 Easy Ways to Organize Travel Scrapbook Pages. And I will link that at the end of this video. And basically I show you a whole bunch of different travel pages from different types of album and talk about more the thinking behind documenting your travels rather than just the layouts and how they're assembled and put together. So one thing I do love to do, you can see this is still in the page protector. I'm sorry if it's giving you a little bit of reflection from my lights, but I can't really show you this any other way. So this is a 6x12 flip flap. I love flip flaps. I love using them in my trip albums to squeeze in more photos, more stories. Here I printed out a 6x12. So remember, when you're trying to do larger photos like this, you're going to end up probably cropping in. So you need to take your photos a little bit wider than you think so that it can be cropped in to the dimensions you wanted. So with this, I chose a square collage that had 2 openings, and then I just put 2 6x12s in there, printed it on a 12x12 and cut it apart. And that's back when I was printing at Costco and their 12x12 prints were more reasonable. Now I print mostly at London Drugs and their 12x12 prints are like $15 or something crazy. I don't usually do that anymore, but there are other ways to get prints that size. So you can see here I have a 6x12 on this side and one on this side. Now I could have added some journaling. I could have added a title down here that would look really nice on this kind of empty spot of the photo. And this one is like the pool at night with the sun setting. Well, it had already set, and like the colors of the sky. Really beautiful. And then I squeezed in a couple more like 2x2 photos. I have some pattern paper in the background. This was a fairly busy pattern and I didn't really find another use for it in my album. So what I ended up doing was putting a map of the resort over top of it. I love doing this when we go to Disney too, because they always have their maps. And these things sometimes change over time, so it's always fun to look back and see what it looked like. And hey, if you're planning another trip in the future to the same location, you can look and see like where the different room blocks are and all that kind of thing. So it's handy that way too. I have the little folder that they included our room keys in, and then some of the bands from the pool area. You had to have like one of those wristbands for being at the pool. So kind of more keepsakes from the trip, and then some large photos. So here's that layout that I showed you at first. This was one that had just like a water pattern. It looked like light reflecting off the water, and I used the whole 12x12. So you can see the back here has like cut aparts, 4x6 cut aparts and some borders, but I used this side with the water and I use that as a background. Now I don't often use pattern paper for my background, but in this case I think it really works. And then I had a couple more busier prints. So like this one had starfish all over it. And then I had a wood grain, and I just ripped both of them and layered them together. I inked the edges. I'm continuing that inking theme through all of this. And then I took some of my smaller pieces and I just cut them with a little banner. This is a 3x4 card, and so is that one. I just cut them to look like a banner, inked all the edges, layered those up. And then this is a 12x12 sticker. And I was using this like cord in the rest of my album. So I wanted to work that into these pages as well. So that is held on with a couple of mini staples and then just tied with a knot right there. Now this is a 4x12 print, and I believe when I got these printed, they weren't quite true 12x12 when I got them, pretty sure from Costco. They weren't exactly 12 inches, and that's why you will see little borders around the edges of them. Some of them I cut them down a little farther and matted them just to make that work. Now, if you don't have a reasonable way to print 12x12, so making collages and printing 12x12 just isn't a good way to do it for you, you can look at what enlargement sizes are offered at the place that you do print. So like now I print a lot at London Drugs, and they have all kinds of sizes of prints. They have like 4x10, They have 6 by 15, so that one you could cut down to 12 inches. There are a lot of options, so if you're in Canada, I highly recommend looking at the different sizes that London Drugs offers. Sometimes there are sizes that are only available in the glossy finish, but I prefer the pearl finish, so that does limit some of the sizes that they offer. But depending on who you have for a local printer, if you don't have a large format printer at home, that's something to look into and see what kind of unique sizes they offer. Even if you have to get those unique sizes printed somewhere and then print all your regular 4x6, 3x4 at home or more cheaply somewhere else. Okay, here's the other collection that I was telling you about. This trip was part of an incentive trip that I earned from Close to My Heart. It was my very first one actually, and it was an amazing trip. So something they used to do was give us pre-cut kits to get our pictures scrapbooked, which was amazing. There's usually always a stamp set that is made exclusively for that trip as well. So these stamped images that you can see back here are all from that exclusive set. So I did keep the craft paper, the inking of the edges, going through this whole album just to help it blend from one collection to the next. It does have a little bit more vintagey feel, so I think it does go with the collection that I was using pretty well, and I just interspersed those layouts throughout my book. My title here is stamped, and I can't remember if this was supposed to be a separate banner piece or if I just jacked up my stamping and I covered it with a piece. But either way, I have it stamped on a banner, and if you hate stamping on your actual pages, something like this is a great idea because then you can just start over, right? If you get it crooked, you don't get a clean stamping, you can start over and you're not working right on your base page. Now these elements are all still stamped right onto this base page here. I have some sequins. We have a strip here that is matted and then more stamping that goes behind there, and then a couple little banners down here. Now one thing I really did like about the layouts that they made for us is there's a lot of white space. So it definitely gives your eyes some place to rest. Circle photos, definitely not something I do much anymore, but I was able to fit that in there. And just kind of an interesting layout on this page, kind of going around in a little bit of a triangle there, and then lots of room to journal on this one as well. Okay, another kind of unique setup here. These two pages are kind of very different from each other, but we have the same panels of paper going from one side to the next, so it makes them flow together as one page. I thought this was really fun. It looks like it's a pocket, but it's not. I mean, you could make this into a pocket if you wanted to, but this is actually ends right here. I trimmed off my photo on an angle to match the edge of this little strip here, this lagoon strip of cardstock. So that's actually the end of my photo. It does not tuck underneath. This piece is tucked behind. And then my little journaling piece here where I have more of that cord, which is stapled there. That vacation recap is from that exclusive stamp set as well. And then here's another one of the pool at night shots. And I had more room for journaling here if I wanted to, or I could have probably even done another little photo, but I didn't. I did leave that open. There is quite a bit of white space on this page. You can see that exclusive stamp set again. I like when they do that because it has this information that you're not going to find on any other stamp set, like #Alani. These were fussy cut flowers, and then we've got some more banners here, a little grouping of photos, and then lots of room at the bottom too. So if you had a trip where you had tons of journaling, this would be a great option. There is some stamping under here as well with that same brown ink, and it just says awesome, 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 just like repeatedly stamped under there. Now this page is back to the Kaiser Craft collection again. And I did something on this page that I've actually forgotten about, and I just recently did it again, and I forgot how much I love it. So it's basically a faux pocket page. So you have all of your pieces in chunks, leaving little margins in between. So it gives the feeling of a pocket page with the room to breathe in between each chunk of paper or each photo. And I love the way that looks, but it will still fit in a 12 by 12 page protector. I actually used this concept to do my week in the life for 2023. I am working on that and it will be coming. So if you're interested in seeing that project, I have about 12 pages that are done like this with the faux pocket page. I just need to do my journaling and some embellishing and things, and then I can do a layout share for that one as well. So this was probably my favorite day of the whole trip. My husband booked a trail ride for us beside the ocean. It was absolutely magical. I used to own a horse and ride all the time and really miss it. And this was just the best. Riding along the beach in Hawaii, I highly recommend. I have some pieces border punched here, and they're just tucking underneath the edge to add a little bit of detail and break up the linear feel a little bit. Love this pattern here, and that I could give it kind of its own little spot to shine there. I have a sticker, I have some shimmer trim, more stickers from the collection. This one is pop dotted, and then I have some more sequins around there. Now you can see on this side, I didn't go for that faux pocket page look, but I still kept the same feel going. So I actually have this whole piece here is one solid piece of pattern paper, but then I have that same scalloped edge that I used over on this side. And then I also used those same off-white, I think those are probably colonial white photo mats, so that it matches the same look of having these little margins. More stickers, more sequins, and then of course I repeated that shimmer trim all along here. Shimmer trim is just gorgeous and it's super sticky, so you don't have to worry about it peeling up. Close to My Heart still has like a ton of colors of those, and they're really fun to use. I did my journaling on a tag here, and I actually ripped the end of my tag before I inked it. Put a little bit of some like jute through the hole there, and then wrote my story. That was a nice big journaling spot for these pages. And of course I had way more photos than just this that I wanted to use, so I used some Pocket Plus pages. So when this is in an album, these will go in between like that. And then I am able to put in more 4x6 photos. And I didn't even use like journaling cards or anything. I just had so many photos that I wanted to use and so many things I wanted to remember. So I squeezed in as many photos as I could. So here is another layout. And again, a lot of patterned paper, which isn't typically my style, but I broke it up with a nice thick border of the colonial white around the outside. And then the pattern paper here is like a very subtle watercolor look paper. And I have a strip of that floral paper and then another strip, but this one I used that same border punch. And I do enjoy these designs that flow right from one side to the other. They are flush on this side, right to the edge, and then I cut them all with a banner end on this side. And this wood grain paper here has like a sandy kind of splashed pattern on the bottom of it, which is really neat. I have a little bit of journaling, and then I introduced some of these hibiscus florals, and I believe I used my colored pencil for these and then blended it with mineral spirits just to help melt that waxiness. So some of these are down flat, some of these are pop dotted. I didn't have a die for this set, so these are all fussy cut. And then I also sprinkled in some of those sequins. Those sequins appear through all of my pages pretty much, just to tie everything in together. And I tried to take the colors from like this floral paper here. They are maybe a little bit brighter, but I think it still works out okay. And then you can see I have my 3 clusters. So I have a larger cluster here, a medium cluster, and then a small cluster. So I have my visual triangle going on here. And then over here, I also added a sticker and more sequins. If you're finding this video helpful and it's giving you some ideas, I hope you'll hit that like button. It helps out my channel and I would really appreciate it. This layout here was from the botanical gardens that we went to, and I incorporated some larger photos again. So this one is actually in a page protector because I want to show you the flip flap. This one is not, and hopefully the reflection isn't too bad for you. Now I switched up my florals here and I actually cut these on the Cricut and then curled them a little bit and layered them together. I'll hold that up so maybe you can see the dimension. I'm pretty sure I cut this one on my Cricut as well from craft paper. and then worked in all those beautiful pattern papers that I've been using, kind of like a little sampling, different thicknesses. This would also be a great place for some journaling underneath the title if you wanted to journal. And then included a great macro shot. I believe we had like our big camera at that point, so my husband was doing all these really fun macro shots with his lens. And then on this side, I have another 6x12, and my flip flap actually opens this way. So then I have another 6x12. Let's see if I can hold this so you guys can see. So a beautiful 6x12 on this path, all the mossy rocks. I can literally smell and feel the way this was when we were there. It was just magical. We walked around there for a very long time. And I have more kind of close-up shots. I got 3 more photos in here. Another like macro shot of this flower. And I love being able to squeeze in so many big photos and so many beautiful shots of the nature, because it's something definitely way different from what we have here. And then I echoed the strips of paper on this side and repeated that border punch strip of craft paper down here, repeated the flower design, and then added a little bit of journaling. So here is one more layout from those gardens. I had so many beautiful photos. It was really hard to narrow down what photos I was going to use, but I still managed to work in some really great pattern papers. And it's funny flipping through this now with you guys, I'm getting a lot of inspiration for myself for some patterns and designs that I would like to use again. So I hope that you guys are kind of making notes or taking screenshots of things that you would like to use, even if it's not for your travel albums, just for regular scrapbook layouts, whatever the theme may be. Because like this here, with all these strips of paper, I love that you get to showcase your photos, but also showcase the beautiful paper. And I think it's a really good match between the two of them. And I think that this design is fun because it's not like a mirror image. Lots of times I do designs that flow right across the whole canvas, but here you can see these are coordinating, but they're not a matching page, right? Because I have this big block of pattern paper here. I do carry over the craft cardstock. I carry over the florals. This kind of like basket weave pattern paper is carried over, and these florals are the same as these ones here. So it coordinates and it looks great together, but it's not a mirror image of what's on the left page. I'll bring this closer so you can get a look at those floral clusters. Like I said, these were all done on the Cricut. And I just love all these strips of the pattern paper. It just shows them off so nice. And then this page is actually pretty simple. There's not a ton to it, but I really like it. And when you have such beautiful photos to work with, which is often what you have when you're doing vacation scrapbooking or albums, makes it really fast and easy. Now you may have thought, for sure she is done showing us pictures of this botanical gardens. No. I am not. I have more pictures that we took there. This is a fun design. You have one big photo on this side and then lots of little 3x4s. And then you just have like one strip of paper that continues across. Both of these are flagged, and then both of these ones coming down this side are flagged as well. And then we have some repetitive stamping here. So this is like first generation, second generation, third generation. And this looks like it was with a darker brown, maybe like a cocoa brown or something like that. Definitely on the darker side. That's what I stamped the aloha in as well. Some of the embellishments, I know I made some of these pages ahead before I actually put photos on. This was one of the designs from Close to My Heart. So some of the embellishments don't really work. Like this one says Beach Bum. That's a stamped one that is cut out and pop dotted over top of this twine. I have more of those florals with the little sequins in the center. These arrows here are stamped. That title is stamped. And this title was stamped first in Glacier, and then the bottom part of those letters were rolled into Lagoon. So you kind of get like a two-tone look. And then over here on this page, it says Waikiki Beach. It's little details like that probably no one would notice. And if I wasn't showing this to you in a video, I probably wouldn't notice them either. This plastic clip was part of this collection. Don't remember what this was called. I want to say it was like hopscotch or something like that, but I could be wrong. We have another stamped arrow and then more of those flowers and a little bit of journaling. By this point, I was kind of running out of things to say about here. I just wanted to fit in like tons of these gorgeous photos that we took. Okay, switching it up, we have a Pearl Harbor layout. So one of the days that we were there, we went to Pearl Harbor, and I'm using still that same Kaisercraft collection, and I went for things that seemed a little bit more nautical, and I just used the pattern paper strips, put them across both pages, and flagged both ends. And then this one up here is a border punch. So I just took a strip of paper, border punched it with these little like chevron arrow designs, and put it top and bottom offset from each other. And then these anchors you see here, I actually cut those out on my Cricut. So I have a dark blue, I think it's probably Pacifica blue, and then the outline was done in the Colonial white. And I did size them 3 different sizes. So I have a small, a medium, and a large. These little ones look like they could be fairly close. They might be the same size. But I still repeated the same elements of inking my edges, the Colonial white photo mats. This picture was really cool. My husband got a picture of me looking at some of the displays, so you can see my reflection in the glass of the display. And then we're repeating the same element of that cord going across, which I think really works with the whole like shipyard sort of feel. And then my title here was cut with thin cut dies, and then I inked the bottom with that brown ink and then just let it fade out as it went to the top. So the letters are actually cut out of the Colonial white and then inked starting at the bottom, and then I let it fade out as it got closer to the top. And all of these are pop dotted. And I still kept that craft paper going throughout these pages as well. Now while we were at Pearl Harbor, we actually went on to the USS Missouri, and you got to like tour the ship and everything. Super claustrophobic. I could not do the whole sleeping in those bunks. Absolutely horrible. And but it was interesting. It was really interesting to see. So I did the same sort of thing that I did with the anchors. Actually, I cut more anchors, and I have those in 3 places. And then I did like a life preserver cut on my Cricut as well, and have that in 3 different places in 3 different sizes. I'm using that same Kaisercraft paper. This time I matted my photos in the craft paper and used the Colonial white as my base. This one here is actually a postcard. So that's another good tip if you want to use large photos, but maybe you have a hard time getting those good photos with whatever camera or phone that you have. Look for postcards, because a lot of places they'll have these gorgeous photos that you can't even take. Like you can't even get to that location to take those beautiful photos. So why not get a postcard, add it in, and when it's on your layout, it fits right in. Plus it gives you a little title as well, although I did add the words down here, USS Missouri on here, and then I just added a little bit of journaling of the story along the top. I didn't add a whole bunch of journaling. Now, of course, I had more photos from this, so I got out the Pocket Plus again. So these live in between these 2 pages when it's in an album. So I just have different pictures of inside the ship, and on the ship I have another postcard. This is the Pearl Harbor, like the floating memorial, and a picture of like all the bunks. Makes me claustrophobic just thinking about it. And then a picture of us there. So great way to fit in more pictures into your pages. I will always, between Flip Flaps and Pocket Plus, those are my go-to, especially for travel albums when I want to fit more in, but I didn't want to do a second layout about this. Those are all the pages that I have to share with you today. I hope you really enjoyed this and that it gave you lots of ideas and inspiration for either your own travel albums or also just page designs in general that you could use with any of your photos. Make sure you check out the video that's on the screen if you want more ideas for ways to organize your travel albums and also documenting while you're on the go. And I will see you next time. Bye.